Okay, so we talked about evaluate. We talked about what algebraic expressions were, and we talked about writing them. Today we're going to evaluate them. What does evaluate mean? If we don't know what evaluate means, then we really can't do anything else because we don't know what to do. What does evaluate mean, Brooklyn? Yes, evaluating algebraic expressions just means to solve. That's all that means. So on your test, when you see something that says evaluate this, just means solve it. Don't get tripped up. Don't freeze up and say, I don't know what to do. It just means solve it. That's all it is. Okay? So if we look at this is nothing new. This is what we've been talking about. A variable is a symbol, which is usually a what? What is the variable usually? We've pointed them out. We've done all the things. What are they, Abby? It's just a letter. So a variable is a letter that stands for an unknown number. So a lot of times these notes all go together and they say the same thing because we want to get that in your head. We want you to know that a variable is just a letter. And in an algebraic expression, it can contain numbers, variables, and operations. Again, this is nothing new. This is what we've been doing. Do you all remember what is the one thing that it doesn't have? There's something that makes a difference between an expression and an equation. And you don't have to know it, so I'm not writing it down. But you don't have to know it now. But what's the one thing that an expression does not have that an equation does? I'm going to make Travis sweat a little bit because he's about to jump out of his hide. So, what is that one thing that expressions do not have? Brooklyn? Travis? You were jumping up to tell me and now you're not telling me? A what? I did call on you to tell me the answer. Both of you are right. It's an equal sign. So, again, don't need to know that for the test, but it's something good to know in the future. So I just wanted to see if you remember. But an expression is something, an algebraic has numbers, variables, and operations. A variable is a letter. So, to evaluate it, we know evaluate means to solve. So, to evaluate an algebraic expression just means to find the value of it given specific values for each variable. So we practice writing them with the variables, and now we're going to finally be told what those variables mean, and we're going to be able to actually solve it and get a final answer. You writing this down? Okay. There's two simple steps. So the first step is to substitute the given value for each variable. Now, what happens when I'm not here? We have a what? We have a substitute. What does that substitute do? Abby? It replaces me for a day. When you substitute a given value, you're replacing that variable. So if you have 3x, X equals 5, I'm going to have that 5 take the place of that X. And then it's going to let me solve it. So step 1 is just to substitute. And then we'll get to step 2 after lunch. Please be quick at the restroom. We're going to go on though. So leave your stuff how you have it. Line up outside in this board door. Come on. Hey, wait, my class is my class.
What did I do? No, I didn't. How would you come with me? My card. You stole my card.
I will block one of his mom.
No. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. My card's gone. Oh no. My card gone. I can keep home on the bus.
Each classroom.
I can't get home on the bus. I can't get home on the bus. some bad people.
Bad.
Bad. That's like who can make it. Bad. Y'all went in.
I almost did.
No. No.
So that's what he told me, and I thought
This is recording, by the way. But okay, guys, I left this recording going during lunch, so Mitchell has been sitting here listening to nothing for 30 minutes. But we're gonna keep going from where we stopped. My pen's in here. So we were talking about evaluating algebraic expressions, and there's no need for a calculator yet. You may not even need it today because these are pretty simple to do. The step 1 was to substitute the given value, and step 2 is we have to evaluate. What did we say evaluate means? It means to solve it. So if you evaluate the number, you're just solving what it says. What are the steps that we remember the certain order to solve things in? What are those steps that we have to, they're called something. Hi, girls. So all we did was say that evaluate means to solve. And I'm trying to ask, it says to solve using something. So there are certain steps that tell us a certain order of this goes first, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you. What are those steps called? Matthew?
Order of operations.
It's the order of operations. That's why we looked at those a couple weeks ago. The order of after we substitute our number in place of our letter, then we can just use the order of operations to tell us what we need to do. Don't forget though, if you have a number right next to a variable like 5y or 3k, what does it mean to do? What operation are you going to do when you have a number and a variable? Bryson, what are you going to do? When you have a number right next to a variable, what does it mean to do to those two things? Multiply. So I don't even need an operation sign. I just know that right there means to multiply. So if I told you that y is equal to 3, could you solve that?
Yes.
What would you do, Travis?
You do 5 times.
You would do 5 times 3 because you know that the y, if you know y equals 3, and you know that a number right beside a letter means to multiply, then you just multiply those two. But that's really all you're going to do with solving equations. So, or expressions, not equations. To solve an expression, you're going to take something you know, so it gives you what the answer is, or what the variables stand for. Substitute them in place of the letters, and you can solve it. You can't solve them unless it gives you this. So on your test, if it says solve this expression, and it gives you something like that, you have to know what the A stands for, or you have to know what the B stands for. And so you may have to go back and look at your question, because a lot of times people act like, even when I was in school, I was guilty of this too. I would read the first 2 or 3 words, okay, got it, I'm solving, and I would skip the rest of it. But I have to know what's back here in order to be able to do what's here. Okay? So 3a. What is that? What operation am I doing there? Savannah?
3 plus 5. And
No.
A is 5.
Well, the a is 5. But when I have a letter right beside a variable, it doesn't mean plus. I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to do 3 times 5, which we know is 15. So that's how you solve an expression. That's all you have to do. Is you're just, the problem, the directions will give you what the variables equal, and you just substitute it in place and solve it straightforward. What would I do for this one? This one would be 5 plus what? What number would I put in place of b, Braxton? 2. Then 5 plus 2 is what, Trey?
5 plus 2 is 7.
That's my answer.
Yay!
Let's go. What about this one? This one's a little bit trickier. I have my 2. What does my a mean? Travis?
It means to
A.
multiply.
No, what does a mean?
5.
5. So when I have a number right beside a letter, though, what am I going to do with that 2 and that 5, Abby? I'm going to multiply, and then I'm going to add. B is 2, so I'm going to add 2. This is where the order of operations come in handy. What am I going to do first? Am I going to multiply or am I going to add, Bryson? I have to multiply. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. If I didn't know the order of operations, 5 and 2 is 7, and then that times 2 is 14. So your answers are different. So you have to make sure you remember what those order of operations are. If you don't, what's the thing that you remember for the order of operations? Brooklyn?
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I told you all, we did this a couple weeks ago. And I said, if you remembered that, when you get your hard copy of your test, you can write that down. As soon as I give you the hard copy, you can write PEMDAS down. That way you know that's what it is. Because that's going to be a lot of what you do on your test, is you have to know those order of operations. That's not going to go away. It's not just something we did 2 weeks ago and now we're done with it. You have to know it for this test. You need to know it in 8th grade, in high school, in college. You have to know the order of operations. Okay? What would I do there? How in the world do I subtract A minus B, Graceland? Yeah, I know A is equal to 5. B is equal to 2. So I'm just going to do 5 minus 2, which is 3. Woohoo!
It's easy.
This is all we're doing. I know it's easy. So, your homework tonight, like I said, I kind of broke it up. So, your homework tonight was going to be a digital activity over doing this, but I think what I am going to do is move that to tomorrow to give you a little bit more practice with it. And so tonight, all you have to do is the inside. So if you open up these notes to the inside problems, then you know what they are. It's 8 problems, pretty straightforward. Read the entire thing so you know what numbers, like what the letters stand for. Number 5 and number 8 might be a little tricky because it has the exponents. But remember, exponents are just how many times you multiply the number. So, you all have about 15 minutes. Go ahead and get started.